Mark Yoshimoto Nemcoff.
So what you're listening to right now is the BCM-104 going through the CP5, the DIYRE CP5 with no EQ on it and no color on it. And while I really like this sound a lot, I thought it would be pretty cool to add the flavor of an op-amp to this. And I thought that the DOA, right, the discrete op-amp color board from DIYRE, would be a great way to do it, and would also be a great way to really listen to the sound of other op-amps, because I don't think it's really clear in my mind what different op-amps sound like. Now I know that this one, the Red-25 op-amp, right, that has more of an API flavor, so we're going to get a little bit more of a mid-forward sense to it. And again, you're hearing it with no color on this. This is just flat, because I want to baseline your ears for a moment. So this build is really very simple. Overall, right, I would say it's, if you are capable of building the CP5, you're absolutely capable of building these little boards in probably under an hour. And it's really easy. I mean, the little standoffs, you'll see me struggling here with the standoffs because they do involve like pressing them in. And, you know, I'm afraid to press them in too hard because I don't want to snap them. But luckily, they give you an extra one. So if you should drop one on the floor and lose it or, you know, snap it, you have an extra one. But they all went in. And then the other thing was like these little pins that, these little socket pins for the op-amp. Got to make sure that you don't lose those, but they gave me an extra one of those too. And I'm assuming that they do that in the kit to prevent having to mail out an extra one should you happen to lose one. So the connector here that you see me putting in right here, this is the little socket connector that connects in the CP5 for the color board to connect into the circuit. So, you know, little tiny pins, really easy. You know, overall, I don't think that this was a difficult build other than the fact that it is a bit of a compact build. And I should have dug around in my box and found a slightly thinner tipped soldering iron. Would have made my life a little bit easier. The tip on the soldering iron was just maybe a hair too big. I should have gone down in size. Now, putting in the socket pins, again, not a problem. You do want to put tape over them. Makes it so much easier because you have to flip it and solder it from the bottom. But, you know, the beauty of this board, I really feel, is that adding the color of an op-amp without anything else. They have one with a transformer, and I was going to get that, but I have a number of transformer-fed preamps. I thought a transformerless preamp that allows me to use op-amps would be really cool. So what I'm going to do right now is I am going to switch over and give you a sense of what this sounds like while you watch me go through all the resistors. I think there's 11 of them. This goes by quick, so hold on. So here we have the op-amp, the color turned on, and we're going through this Red-25 op-amp at 50%. So I have the color dial set at 12 o'clock straight up. And you can definitely hear there's a difference. And it does have a much more mid-forward sense to it. It kind of loses a little bit of the bottom end. You're getting more of a low to upper mid bump to this. And it is very much like that API muscular sound. I like it. And this is actually kind of interesting. So one of the things that I noticed is that with this, through the CP5 and with using the Red-25 op-amp, check this out. This is the U87. And while they don't sound the same, I find that, and tell me if I'm wrong, tell me if I'm absolutely wrong, that you're getting more of that upper mid-forward sound, because the BCM-104 on its own feels to me like a more neutral 87. So it's missing a little bit of that mid-forwardness that you're getting with the addition of the op-amp. Now here, again, here's the U87. And here is the BCM-104 going through the Red-25 op-amp. Now, I'm not saying they sound the same, but they do now live in a very similar tonal territory, whereas before, the BCM-104 and the 87 were a little bit more different. So here, again, let me go back to, let me turn color off, hold on. And here's the BCM-104 with no color switched off. And it does sound a little bit more plain Jane vanilla, and I like it like this. But the ability to add that color, it's like an analog plug-in. the ability to make it a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more mid-forward. I mean, an incredible add-on. And this color board costs like $60. So for $60, what an incredible tonal variation to add to the CP5. All right, let me switch it back on. Let me go back to that. And here it is with the CP5 with the color enabled, again at 12 o'clock, 50%. And what you're hearing a little bit more harmonic content in there. The low end feels like it's a little bit cut a little bit. So I think this like really sits better for something, a voiceover where, again, you don't really need or want to have all that low end. There's a difference. Like if you're doing narrative work where your voice is the entirety of the sonic spectrum, there's no music. So your voice has to fill in all of that emotional content. You need low end, right, for a narration where there's no music. That's one thing. But if you're doing a commercial, again, you don't really need all that low end. I don't know how many times I have to say that, but let me switch back. Let me switch back to the 87 to give you another idea what this sounds like. And now the 87, we're living in a very similar mid-forward sonic territory with them. But the 87 feels a little bit more woolly because the 87 has a transformer and the 104 is transformerless. So now all of a sudden I'm listening to this and I feel like the 87 feels a little bit occluded in the low mids. All right, back to the BCM-104. All right, let's switch around some of the color settings here. All right, what's going on here? All right, so looking at the build, I've got the capacitors in. Now, again, this was a very simple build, and to me the most difficult aspect of this build was the size of the board, the size of my soldering iron tip, and the placement of the camera really making it a little bit more awkward to do this. So now we're moving on. We're moving on to the op amp. Okay, I've set the color wheel, the color dial to 25% now. It's at 9 o'clock. So the thing with this little discrete op amp, the thing with this Red-25 that's pretty cool is that pretty much all of the assembly is done for you. It's all surface mount parts that are on there, and they're all really tiny, as you can see. And so what you have to do is you have to basically put a few parts together. Now, the most difficult part of the building of the op amp is making sure that your pins are aligned correctly, because this is the easy way to do it. Using the DOA board and the sockets in there that the op amp is going to have to plug into as a jig to hold the pins in place properly so that you can solder them in. Because I've built an op amp before where a couple of the pins weren't perpendicular to the board perfectly. And so getting into the socket required me having to resolder them. And they're tiny pins, so it's a pain in the ass. So getting the other parts in here, not that difficult. There's only 2 resistors, and they're the same resistor. So it doesn't matter. You don't have to worry about them too much. Just pop them in, solder them. Everything else is really pretty much cut and dry. But again, this is the op amp at 25%. So we're just getting a little bit of op amp color on there. And this is the U87 in comparison. So the U87 again feels a little bit woolly to me listening to it like this. This is the 87 with no EQ. If I pop a little EQ on it, right? So this would be more like a working EQ. So there's that. And then I go back to the BCM-104 with the color on. And, the question I have really for a lot of this is, would the end listener, right, somebody listening to it as a commercial, would they be able to tell the difference? Could you sub in the BCM-104 through the CP5 with the DOA for an 87 and get away with it? That's the question. That, to me, is the big question. All right, so where we are in the build here. Hold on. All right. Oh, okay. So I've changed the color dial to 75%, and you can hear it's distorting. And this is an effect you may want for certain vocals. Definitely not for voiceover, I don't think. All right, what's going on screen? So what we're doing is we're putting in these transistors. Now, these 2 transistors here are also the same. so you don't have to worry about which one goes where. They face each other. The pins are tiny. The pins are very tiny. So again, this is definitely something that would have been a little bit easier with a thinner soldering iron tip. Let me switch this to a different color setting because this is annoying. It's a little too distorted. Okay, so this is the color setting at about I would say 9:30, 10 o'clock on the dial there. So between the 25% and the 50% setting. This kind of sits really nicely. I like the 50%, but I like this. This is a nice little compromise in between them. And again, I mean, I think this really shows that you can definitely get a wide range of tones with just this color. And here we are back on the U87. U87 feels a little bit more mid-forward here. And again, it definitely, you feel the transformer weight difference, whether that's a good thing or not. EQ is on. So hold on. Let me go back to the BCM-104 here. And, okay, no EQ on the BCM-104. Hold on. And now we're back on the U87 with no EQ. And I'm starting to hear like it feels like there's a little bit of cotton in my ears. Hold on. All right, let's go back to the BCM-104. Let's finish this out here with this setting. So overall, what did I learn here? I learned a couple of, so what you're actually watching on screen here is that the final two transistors, the two big ones with the holes in them, they're actually different. They have to go in their appropriate places. The Q7 and Q8 are different transistors, even though they look identical. So you do have to look on the face of the transistor and make sure you're putting the right one in the right place. Now, what happened here is that, again, these soldering pads are really close together, and I ended up with like a solder bridge between them. And trying to fix this on camera without moving the camera took a little bit longer. And usually, what you do in this case when you're soldering is you can run the tip of your soldering iron usually between the two pads, right, that are connected together. And you will draw away the solder from between them and break the solder bridge. But I couldn't do it because my tip was too big. I couldn't get them disconnected from each other. And finally, I was able to, but it took a little bit longer. It looks like it took 10 minutes on camera. So this is it. This is the installation. It pops in really easily. You gotta pop in those standoffs right there, and boom, there it is. And you can take the op amp out, and you can sub in other op amps. So here I'm showing you a bunch of other op amps I have. There's the Hardy 990, very clean, precise op amp. And then the other two are ones I got from Cappy. One is like a model of a Neumann op amp that's in their mastering rig, and the other one I forget what it is. But you will hear them because I'm going to test them all out. So there you go. There's the build. I actually am talking longer than the build, so there you go. So what do you think? What do you think of the CP5 with the color? I really like it. I really like it with the DOA color, because again, I didn't want to add another transformer fed preamp. I like that it's transformerless, but with the addition of being able to make it a little bit more harmonically rich to change the tone. But I want to know what you're thinking. All right, let me know in the comments. Until next time, this is Mark Yoshimoto Nemcoff, going through the BCM-104 through the CP5 with the DOA board set at 33%. Fading to black.